I've spent a career building a structure that had my name on the door. Most recently it was one place, and then before that it was my own place, and it had my name on the door. My name's always been on the door. I made a decision to walk away from it at the beginning of the year. I don't regret it. It's been one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Knowing that there would be some fallout, knowing that there were other people that would be affected by my decision. There's consequences to any decision, but I felt like it was the right decision for me at this time in my life.
Yeah.
And so it was hard, but anything in life worth doing is hard.
Yeah.
Because if it were easy, everybody would do it.
That's facts. I mean, when people hear she walked away from a firm with her name on the door, like, what do they assume? Like, what do you think the assumption is?
I don't know. I don't really think about what other people think. I think about what I think. Like, I did a lot of self-assessment, not just in recent times, but certainly a lot in recent times. But really, this is a decision that I've been coming to over, several years. And I don't really sit around and think a lot about what other people think about it. I make the best decision for me, and then I move.
I love that. I think there's definitely a lesson there. Before we get into the why, can you tell me what you know today that the 30-year-old version of you would have killed to know when she started?
Ooh. The 30-year-old version of me needed to know that she didn't need to be strong for everybody else. She needed to be strong for herself first. Like, put the oxygen mask on yourself first is really a thing. Like, a friend of mine says that all the time to me, and I always thought I was doing it, okay, I'll, go for a walk, or I'll go to the gym, or I'll eat healthy today. That's not what that means. Like, putting the oxygen mask on yourself first means that you literally have to be strong for yourself. Like, I think women especially carry so much weight of everybody in their life. And it's just structurally part of who we are. We're built to be nurturers. Mm. And, I think we all carry that weight, and nobody ever tells us it's okay to put it down. And I would go back and tell my 30-year-old self, it's okay to put it down. Like, I spent an entire career, 34 years, where I didn't take a vacation without checking my email. I didn't take a vacation without checking my phone, without returning calls, without checking in at the office. I even went to Africa on safari, and every time we would get to a resort that had the equivalent of dial-up internet, I would find a way to dial up and check on the office. Like, I couldn't even go to the farthest reaches of our current makeup of our earth where internet hasn't reached. Like, I couldn't even do that and get away from it, of carrying other people's weight. And I would tell that 30-year-old self, like, you got to set it down sometimes, because otherwise you can't be strong for you.
Mm. Yeah, and I think we should go on just to the segment of why you walked away. I think it makes the most sense, and we'll make this front and center and kind of get through your compass and north is north and everything that we prep before after that, because I do find this like very fascinating conversation. Can I make the argument, Michelle, that you were doing that because you just really loved what you did at the time? Like, that's why you just really loved what you were doing, and you couldn't stop thinking about it. Can I make that argument?
I think that there is a sense of that. I think that I would say that it gave me identity, that I didn't have any other vessel for identity. I think that it also gave me a sense of purpose. I think that my career of carrying the strength for others gave me it gave me a mission. It was something that I was doing for other people, and so I felt like I was being purposeful. And I was good at it. Like, I mean, we can't ignore that part.
Of course.
I was very good at what I do and did. But that doesn't mean I was very good at taking care of me. And to say there has to be work-life balance, or to say there has to be balance in general, like that, I think that's an oversimplification, because you can never have balance. Like there's times when you've got to be at your kiddo's choir concert. Well, then you're not at work. Like you have to be in that moment. Like there's other times where you've got to super focus on, a deadline at work, and that you're in that moment. So at any given moment, there's never balance. So I don't think it's balance that I was missing. I think that it was the strength of what I needed, like the strength of putting myself first and putting the oxygen mask on myself first. And I didn't do that for myself for a very long time. And it showed in my health. It showed in my general disposition. It showed in my outlook on life. And I just I think I finally gave myself permission to put it down.
Yeah, no, I think the analogy of the oxygen mask is definitely fascinating. It's something that I struggle with myself. It is hard to do when you're trying to build something. I feel like it's just difficult because you reason it as like, hey, you kind of push it down the road. Like I'll get to me and my time and the things that I enjoy, like we talked about last week.
Well, right, because when you're young, you're supposed to be grinding, and you're supposed to be working hard, and you're supposed to be building something. And when I was young, I thought I was doing all of those things, and I don't regret doing all of those things. Like I don't have regrets. I'm not a person who, really looks backwards. Like that's not in my nature. I don't look backwards and say like I failed or like I should have done it differently, because you can't argue with the success that I've had. Mm-hmm. And you also can't argue with the fact that I have helped so many people. Like I have been an angel for many, many, many people, many clients that I've represented. And that has meaning. And I don't in any way diminish that. Like I have done very good things for a lot of people and helped them through very tough times. But here's the problem. You can't be everybody's first phone call on the worst day of their life for the rest of your life. Like I just couldn't continue to be that person.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I was having a conversation just yesterday with one of my best friends growing up. He's now a spine surgeon, and he's been practicing for a couple of years, and he lost his first patient. And he's just struggling and going through the struggle of not helping that person after the several people he helped before in the way that he that he would have wanted the ideal outcome. And now he's got to sit with that trauma. So I can only imagine what that's like over the course of 30, 40 plus years of being a professional. Most people, Michelle, think lawyers argue for a living. You just said something that resonates, that actually it's something closer to first responder work. So break that down for me. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah. So especially family lawyers, divorce lawyers, but really, it's a concentric circle. Like divorce and criminal lawyers are kind of the worst of it, I would say. Any litigator is kind of the next circle out, and then all lawyers and all justice system professionals, judges, prosecutors, whatever, are kind of all involved in it. But as a family lawyer, we are kind of the emergency room doctor trauma version of lawyers. And that means that, when people have these family emergencies, domestic violence incidents, whatever happens that causes the marriage to suddenly break apart and fracture, like we're the first phone call. They have a fight and one of them runs away with the kids and says, you're not going to see the kids anymore. Whether that's right or wrong in the moment, or whether it's just an emotional reaction to whatever was happening, we're the first phone call. And so the family lawyers end up being kind of the trauma surgeon or the emergency room doctor of lawyering. And the studies have shown that there's vicarious trauma that we absorb, PTSD, kind of like, obviously not as in the same context, but kind of like police or firefighters or military people in a much different context, we're on the front lines of people's trauma. And there's a shelf life for that. Like, there is only so long that you can be everybody's first phone call on the worst day of their life. There's only so long anybody could do that. And there's only so long that you can carry that. And at some point, it becomes endurance over strength. Like, at some point, you stop being strong for everybody, and it's just an endurance fight. It's just finishing a marathon. It's not, the way you started them. Have you ever run a marathon? Like, when you run a marathon, like, you start strong. Like, they hit go and the little gun goes off and you start strong, right? Yeah. And then when you're at mile 13 or mile 20, like, at that point, it's endurance.
Yep.
And so I think that much of the same for, the litigators who are trying the custody cases, the hard cases with the hard issues of drugs or domestic violence or, sex abuse or, whatever the hard issues are in any given case. Much like that, you can start off a career really strong and being strong for everybody. And then as you go along, like, it just wears you down where it's just an endurance battle.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're in a unique position working with different lawyers at different stages of their career. And I think a common theme and term that I hear from them when I ask, whether it's them or even the trauma surgeons that I'm really close with, is like, how do you deal with that? I'm like, I couldn't do it. How do you deal with it? It's like, well, you compartmentalize. So like, yeah. What you're saying is that you could only compartmentalize so much, right?
Well, sure, because there's natural human emotion that goes with experiencing that. You're sitting across from somebody who's crying on the worst day of their life, the marriage, their family, everything that they thought that their life was going to be, their dreams, their hopes, their future, their retirement, their end of life story. Every vignette that they had in their mind of their future life has just ended. And it is a devastation for them. And maybe there's violence, maybe there's really bad issues, or maybe it's just what us lawyers would call kind of run-of-the-mill divorce, which is still like that, even just thinking of it that way is still just kind of a lack of human emotion. But as lawyers, our literal job is to be stoic and neutral and logical, and we have to maintain that little bit of boundary between the human compassionate feeling toward our client and what they're really going through versus, I've got to be able to go into court and see things from a neutral perspective, understand what's coming at us from the other side and how they're viewing the same situation, the same life from a very different lens. Like, they see the world completely differently. They see the facts completely differently. And I have to maintain that neutrality to be able to be logical in that moment and non-emotional. So I can't be compassionate and I can't get over here and be like, I'm so sorry. And like, I want to have human emotion, but yet I have to set that aside and go and litigate. I have to go fight, in the courtroom. I have to go argue. I have to go be ready to be the gladiator for that person and fend off whatever's coming our way. So then what happens is that the justice system, for the lawyer, for me at least, and I know other lawyers that I am very well acquainted with, and then there's been studies about this all across the country, is that for the lawyer, what happens is you're fighting with the opposing counsel on behalf of their party. You're fighting the judge, maybe because there's time limits or you don't have enough time to present everything you want to say. Or maybe the judge has biases that are going to affect your client. Maybe, the judge, thinks that moms should have custody and dads shouldn't. Or maybe the judge thinks that, working moms should, not be working, or like there's all sorts of biases that any of us have that affect how we view the world, and judges are the same way. So you're fighting the opposing party and the opposing counsel. Sometimes you're fighting the judge. You may be even fighting the system because the system isn't given a fair hearing to your client. And then at the end of the case, Your client is still unhappy because it's an unhappy situation. They're unhappy with the fact that they had to end this entire fairy tale of a life they had constructed in their mind about what their life would look like. And they take that out in your direction because you're the only link to that. So you end up as the lawyer being like, the opposing party is a fight, the judge is a fight, the system's a fight, and then you still haven't made your client happy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
All while you have absorbed their trauma, you've absorbed what's going on with them, you've presented it as best you could. I didn't make up their facts. Like I've always said since I was a young lawyer, like one of the ways that I was able to kind of create that boundary for myself was like, nobody calls me from the bar at midnight and says, hey, Michelle, I'm thinking about going home with this person and not using protection and having a one-night stand, and then I'm going to get pregnant. Is that a good idea? Like, nobody calls me and gives me that opportunity in advance to say, like, no, don't do it. Like, you're going to have 18 years plus a life of dealing with this other person, and maybe you're going to luck out and they're going to be a great person. But maybe you're going to not luck out and they're going to be batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, we don't know. You just met them. Like, you literally just met them at the bar and you're 3 drinks in. Like, nobody gives me that opportunity in advance to say, like, here's some strategy. Like, how about let's not? You know? And so, if any given client situation, you don't make the facts. You didn't have the opportunity to help them make their decisions. They just bring you their pile of shit or their mess and say, like, I've got a mess. I need help. I've got a crisis. Here, fix it. And as lawyers, like, we take it where it's at and we just do the best we can. And then it's just so, dissatisfying is not even a good word. It's just so disheartening that you do the best you can and you win maybe, or you lose maybe, and the client is still not happy with your performance. I can't control the outcome. I can't control what a judge is going to do with this mess. Like, the judge makes the decisions. I don't. All I can control is my ability to present their mess as best I can.
And the research is blunt, Michelle. 20% of lawyers screen as problem drinkers, almost double the rate of comparable professions. Lawyers have a higher suicide rate than the general population. Family law and criminal law, like you mentioned, are consistently identified as the highest burnout specialties. What do people just not understand about that?
I don't think that people understand how hard it is to be that person who's charged with presenting your mess as best we can and still having human emotion, like being compassionate about the problem, but also having to be logical and having to go fight the fight on all fronts and then still go home and live our lives.
Yeah.
I think that people are in those places where they are so focused on their own problems that they almost don't see us as human.
Yeah. No, I can totally see that. What do you say for the, potential keyboard warrior that'll be like, boo-hoo, like you were getting paid X amount of dollars an hour, like you're this and that, like this is your job, like deal with it. Like, what's your response to that?
Tell that to the family of the lawyer who got shot at the Tarrant County Courthouse a few years ago. Tell that to the family of the lawyer in Atlanta who got shot for representing his client. I could even say that about me. I had a contract put out on my life one time by an opposing party because they didn't like what I was doing.
Wow.
I got threatened by an opposing party with a gun one time because they didn't like what I was doing. You want to say to me that I have some cushy job? Come walk a mile in my shoes. Come walk a mile in my shoes.
And how did you remain resilient through that? Like, give me a taste of what your mindset is when you get word of like threats to your life or your family, or like how did you even deal with it at that time?
To be blunt,
yeah,
bring it. I don't mean that to invite it. Like, I don't want to invite some crazy person to come shoot me, but at the same time, like, if I am a Christian, I have a faith and I have a belief in what's going to happen to me when I die. Like, we're all going to die. Like, we are literally all just walking each other home. And if I have that belief and faith system, mine happens to be Christianity, yours can be whatever it is. If you have a belief and a faith system, then we none should be afraid of dying. Death should not be our fear. And death is not my fear. My fear is when I get to the pearly gates and St. Peter says, "Hello, Michelle." Does he say, "Welcome home, good job"? Or does he say, "You could have done better"?
Yeah, hell yeah. That's awesome. Michelle, there's a difference between fighting for something and fighting over something. I like that. Can you explain it?
That as lawyers, we have to make choices about things that we fight for or things that we fight about. And as clients, you have to consult with them about what we're fighting about or what we're fighting for. And so I always try to keep the bigger picture in mind of what is the ultimate goal? What are we trying to achieve? And then there may be skirmishes along the way to achieving that don't really get us closer. Fighting over the Christmas tree ornaments, fighting over the china, unless it was grandma's china, like fighting over one time
I was about to ask you
the Beanie Babies.
Give me a good one. Okay.
Do you remember Beanie Babies?
Of course.
Like back in the 80s or 90s or whatever, whenever Beanie Babies were out, like fighting over the Beanie Baby collection. Like, why? Like, today, as we sit here, like however many years later after McDonald's had Beanie Babies, like, are they even valuable anymore? Like, does anybody even care about Beanie Babies anymore? And like, I had many fights over Beanie Babies. But you've got to pick your battles. And that's true about life. And it's true about divorce. And it's true about a lot of things, right? You have to pick your battles. And you can fight over some of those small battles, or you can fight for the bigger purpose and the bigger mission that you're trying to achieve. And that's true in divorce and it's true in life. You've got to figure out what that thing is that you're trying to achieve, what your mission is, and stay focused on the mission.
Stay focused on the mission. A princess stays to prove she can survive it, like the issue that she's in, right? What does a queen do instead?
I mean, a queen has to choose that. A queen has to decide and own it. A princess is fighting over, getting what she's due. A queen knows what she's due and may even sacrifice the monetary thing of what she's due because she knows that there are other prices that she's paying. You can be paying an emotional toil. You can be paying a physical toil. You can be paying like all these other types of tolls, not necessarily just money. So don't stay and fight over money. Like, you can give up some money to get peace.
I love that. Instead of asking for permission, instead of negotiating for space, you said you decided to architect a new room entirely. What does that room look like?
I have created a new place where I want to do things that are positive and happy and not have to carry the strength and endure the trauma of other people's traumas. For me, that is like an ode to my father. I know in the past we've talked about the lessons I've learned from my father, and he was an entrepreneur. So for me, it's going and helping other people who are entrepreneurs. I have a core belief that entrepreneurship is the answer to almost every problem we have in our society. Entrepreneurship is that answer. Capitalism is that answer. And supporting small businesses and medium-sized businesses, that is the answer. So what I have created is a business that helps entrepreneurs, further their businesses in a way that helps entrepreneurs structure the load that they're carrying so that it doesn't feel so heavy. I mean, I've spent 34 years as an entrepreneur myself, happens to be in the lawyer space. And I know from my experience how heavy that load is and how much like Atlas you feel carrying the weight of the world around on your shoulders, the weight of your clients, the weight of your customers, depending on your industry, the weight of your employees, the weight of your employees' children, because you have all this pressure to feed all of them too, the weight of getting the next customer in the door, the weight of getting the next client in the door, the weight of the next sale, the weight of keeping everybody happy so that then they'll refer you new business, all of that weight sits on the founder of the business. So my new mission is to help founders scaffold that weight and learn these tips and tricks and methods and ways so that it doesn't feel so heavy. Because I've spent all these years, and my dad spent all his life with that weight squarely on his shoulders and the weight on my shoulders. And so I'm here to help other entrepreneurs figure out how to scaffold that so it doesn't feel so stressful.
No, I love that. I got some questions just kind of that came to mind. Like, okay, say I'm a man or a woman who is going through something in the family law arena. Can I still come to you? Are you still somebody? Are you still like an olive branch I can reach out to? Or are you moving on from that direction altogether?
Yeah, I'm not actively litigating anymore. I am basically acting as a quarterback for people's problems, a strategic architect or a strategic quarterback, where I can be the layer in between. So I'm still consulting on divorce cases, consulting on litigation cases, consulting on appellate cases. So I can still help and I can still refer. But what I'm doing now is, especially on certain types of cases that have either super niched legal issues that I have specialized knowledge on, or some particular type of thing that fits in my strengths, I'm more acting as a consultant within the litigation to help the lead trial counsel strategize and present the case in a way that my brain works, so that I'm helping a lot of clients. Instead of working for one firm, I can now work for a lot of clients in a lot of different contexts, instead of kind of being niched down into one practice area, one type of case, one type of crisis with one firm. I'm now kind of untethered so that I can quarterback litigation for a lot of different clients in a lot of different contexts.
No, I love that. And you've earned that. I mean, through all of your success and what you've built. A couple more questions in this segment. Can I make the argument that some of these business issues and some of the problems that you may be consulting are also traumatic or also have weight? Like, can I make that argument? What's the difference with that and what you were doing prior?
I think they all have weight. I mean, all problems have weight. I think that the gravity of the weight is the question.
Yeah.
And, certainly when you're dealing with issues of child abuse, or, the effect of a parent's drug and alcohol addiction on a child, those are the types of things that cause vicarious trauma, for me at least, because I just spent years of dealing with that. The only thing I could think of is, in the doctor context, right? Like, there's a difference between dealing with a gunshot wound and dealing with a broken leg.
Totally. That makes perfect sense. Last thing for me in terms of kind of why you're walking away from this. What's the difference between leaving because you're done and leaving because you're ready? And how do you know which one you are?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that I had to come to terms with it on my own, and it had to be an identity shift. I think that I went through a couple of years of kind of searching, and I listened to my dad's advice. My dad would tell me, like, you don't make a move just because you feel like you should move. You move intentionally. And so if you don't know what the next move is, or you don't know like what that thing is going to be, like, it's not time to move yet. So that's what I really focused on for the last couple of years, was like, I know that this chapter is closing for me, but I don't know what it looks like next. So I did a lot of searching and a lot of meditation and a lot of self-analysis to get to the place of, okay, if I'm ending this chapter and this chapter is closing for me, and like, I acknowledge that I have run the race and I have gotten to the end of this marathon. then what is the next marathon? Or, we've talked about my vision of mountain climbing. Like, I have climbed this mountain and I am acknowledging that I have done that. And we're checking the box on this mountain. Like, I'm not just going to go start randomly climbing, some other mountain without knowing what mountain that is. So instead of like just rando going and finding any old mountain, I sat around for a little bit and meditated and self-awareness and like searched and said, like, intentionally, what is it I want to do next? And then started out, a process of laying the groundwork for that.